Oh, hi, Renee and Matt. Sorry, I had a few technical issues there.
Morning, Hanif. We're live and ready to go here.
Excellent.
So, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Tune In Tuesday with Matt and Renee and Danielle helping us out. And our special guest today is Hanif Hamani. He's the managing director of Express Employment Professionals. So, thanks very much for joining us, Hanif, and everybody else. Before we kind of dive in, we'll do a couple of housekeeping things. So feel free to turn your cameras on if you want. If there's any questions, feel free to type it in the chat, or honestly, unmute yourself and just kind of dive right in. We try to keep these relatively informal. We're also aiming for about half an hour in total. So we want to let you get back on with your day.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It is so hard to believe. It is December the 1st. So what better way to cap off what has been an uncharacteristically strange year than with employment trends? What are you as an employer or as an employee going to see in 2021? Any other housekeeping tips?
No, what a better way to encapsulate 2020 than tech issues at the beginning of a webinar. So it's perfect. It's very on brand. For 2020. So when we were thinking of topics and ideas that we wanted to talk about, we thought about employment trends, and we have a long relationship with Hanif here at Uyghurs Financial and Benefits, and we figured there was no one better equipped to talk about it. So let's just get rolling here. So a little bit about us before we dive right in. Local with a national reach, clients all over the province of Saskatchewan. We have a commitment to the Children's Hospital Foundation. We've raised 1.3 million to date. And it's been fantastic. Unfortunately, we normally have a big event every year, but that also got COVID. So
Here we are. We are going to begin today's presentation with a poll to get started. Let's just see what the pulse is out there as it relates to the current unemployment picture in Saskatchewan. Hanif's going to join in shortly with what we're seeing for unemployment regionally. I think unemployment as a nation, but it affects us here at home. We know of so many instances whereby people have been affected directly or indirectly by what has happened in 2020. So let's take it away with the first poll. Feel free to answer however you feel our picture looks like here in Saskatchewan. I'll give you a couple minutes here for those joining in. Thank you so much to those of you joining in. For those of you who are new, we welcome you. We enjoy having this time with you on Tune In Tuesday. Okay, I think we're ready to go here. We're going to cap off the polling. We have a huge majority, 75% of you saying that the current unemployment rate is 7.8%, and you are correct. That is exactly what we're seeing in Saskatchewan. Hanif, can you talk to us a little bit about the unemployment picture in Saskatchewan?
Excellent. I will certainly do that. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and welcome everybody to this segment. I have a long-standing relationship with Uyghurs. They're a fantastic group of people there, and putting on some very, very valuable programming. So thank you for that. Yes, the unemployment rate. So this is actually as of September 2020. It was in fact 7.8%. That approximately was about 55,000 people unemployed in Saskatchewan. Saskatoon was slightly higher in September at 9.2, and the current rate in Canada was 9%. So we're certainly doing better. And in fact, the October rate, this is September's, the October rate actually did go down to close to 7%. In Saskatchewan, and a little bit lower, I believe it was about 8.5% in Saskatoon. So we did certainly go, we're certainly better than the Canadian picture. I think a lot of that is due to the Saskatchewan government holding on to the business community with a little bit of a more of an embrace. And also I think the fact that we have space here, and so we were able to kind of maintain sort of the virus within certain sort of restrictions and at bay. Having said that, the picture has changed a little bit into November, and so we'll see kind of how that happens. What is interesting is Saskatoon is at 9.2%. Regina's a little bit lower than that. So there are potentially some reasons for that, and if there are any questions, we can get into what those reasons might be, why Saskatoon's unemployment rate is higher than Regina's unemployment rate, all things being relatively similar. But we can certainly get into that. But all in all, it's actually not a bad picture for us here in Saskatoon, and for us in Saskatchewan in general. We'll see what the future brings.
Nice. Yeah, and I would just kind of hazarding a guess, would assume most government employees in Regina still are fully at work.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful, Matt. Yeah, so I would suggest that that's a big part of it. That the government has a lot of offices down there. The big employers, SaskPower, Sask Energy, those sorts of folks are still employed, and so that would certainly augment some of that unemployment rate a little bit more favorably for Regina.
We're going to talk a little bit about which sectors of our economy have been harder hit than others. We're just going to go into our next screen here. The best way to dive in again, poll number 2, what are the top 5 occupations predicted to be most in demand for 2021? So this is a multiple choice. Choose 5 you feel that apply to what the top 5 occupations are. Once we evaluate the poll results, Hanif's going to talk to us a little bit about why these occupations specifically are positioned to be poised for growth in 2021.
No employee benefits advisor on there.
What's up with that?
What's going on?
Hey?
Uh-oh.
We're left in the. Are we cutting our own throat?
Yeah, are we going to get left behind by all the IT people?
Absolutely. I think we'll cap off the polling here. We've got a really interesting mix. Absolutely, IT professionals coming in really strongly. We'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, we're going to cut off the polling here. And the correct answers are, well, I'll get you to read them out, Matt. We'll talk about them.
Accountant, IT professional, HR professional, operations manager, and web engineer. So some of those aren't really that surprising at all. IT,
No.
Everyone having to kind of become their own IT specialist from working from home. HR, I mean, managing people's mental state is a huge part of all of this.
Absolutely. We saw the shift from HR looking at, and Hanif, you'll talk about skill set and the disciplines that are involved with HR to becoming this health and safety role in 2021. So Hanif, can you talk to us a little bit about why these 5
Sure.
occupations that we've talked about are poised for growth in 2021?
Sure. So it really is it's not so much growth, but it is demand, and there is a difference between the two. Having said that, as we move into 2021, I should first of all say that these were occupations that were identified by a consulting firm called Gartner Research. Now, Gartner is a massive research firm out of the States. They support the majority of Fortune 500 companies. So we're talking a fairly credible, fairly large consulting company that accumulates all this data. And so these were their recommendations moving into 2021, the occupations that are in demand or will be in demand as going into 2021. There's a lot of reasons for that, and they also have some research, and I believe we have a slide at the end that sort of summarizes all their 2021 sort of predictions as we move into in terms of employment. So a lot of this will be repeated at the end, but I'll kind of walk you through it. First of all, accountants, and I think accountants is one of those recession-proof roles, as well as lawyers. If you're making money or losing money, you still need accountants to kind of figure all that out. So certainly from that perspective, it does suggest that 2021 there's going to be some capital shifts happening, either growth or decline, and some good accountants in place to kind of manage those capital shifts are going to be valuable. But also from an operational standpoint, and I'll get into that in a little bit because operations managers are there. Accountants are going to be part of that process of as we shift from more bricks and mortar to the digital space, or to the digitization of business. I read an interesting article in The Economist, and they talk about the digitization of business, and we're already seeing it. We're doing it right now, and it's getting more and more integrated into business into 2021. And because of that digitization from bricks and mortar to this space, how those capital assets move around are going to be a big part of the accounting world. So accountants are going to be necessary for a lot of these shifts into 2021. No surprise, HR professionals are going to be a requirement. There's a couple of reasons why HR is going to be a big player in 2021. First of all, as we move remotely, and that is one of the trends that we have seen and we will continue to see, and I have some interesting information on that if you want me to elaborate on it. But as we move into more of the remote space, there are going to be questions around performance management. How do we manage people that are now no longer in the office, and we no longer can sort of physically touch and sort of manage them? What are the new performance metrics that we're going to use to measure people? Is it results-based? Is it activity-based? Should it be both? Does it matter if they're at work at 8 o'clock and leave at 5 if they get all their work done at 10? I don't know. But these are questions that are going to have to be integrated into the fabric of the culture and the HR space moving into 2021. So as people go remotely, certainly there's going to be some performance requirements that HR is going to be involved with. Also, as people go remotely, there's going to be some wellness issues that need to be addressed. What do we do if we don't have that water cooler conversation and we don't have that peer-to-peer interactions as much? It's always formalized in a WebEx or a Zoom meeting. It's not the same level of interaction. And so are we going to get do we have the support within the office that we need when we're working remotely? Layer on that, that's one. If we're alone, that's one issue. But the other option is we could be really, really busy at home. There could be kids running around because of no school. There could be another spouse running around. And you're trying to manage all of this while you're trying to get some work done. So wellness is going to be a big player in 2021. Mental wellness, physical wellness. As we work remotely, I might be hunched over my kitchen table. I might be working from a couch ergonomically, or I might not be in the right, there might be more physical back pain. There might be some more issues in that perspective. This is a whole option, a whole area that folks haven't really thought about. But if you talk to physiotherapists and you talk to occupational health folks, they're seeing an increase right now in physical pains, back pains, wrist pains, these types of things, because we're not in an office ergonomic environment. How do we handle this? Is it whose duty to accommodate is this? Is it the employee? If I get hurt working from my office, which is now at home, is it my employer's duty to accommodate me? I don't know. We don't know the answers to that.
That's a great point. I mean, even thinking from the employee benefits perspective of if you're in WCB and where that kicks in, if your workplace has shifted to your home, and like you mentioned, duty to accommodate, at what point is it your employer's responsibility to give you a proper chair if you don't have an office, or if you're at the kitchen table or a laptop can't run the remote in programs? I mean, it's very interesting to see how it'll play out in the next 6 or so months in that area in particular for us. Luckily, we haven't come across any that we know of, at least disability claims or anything like that from someone getting injured at home during work hours. But I'm sure
the question comes up. It's a fascinating one.
Yeah, well, we're also seeing claims by individuals who contracted COVID at work. And so this is coming through the system. It's a very, very gray area. So far, it hasn't progressed um, much further than the claims stage, and they've actually been denied, the ones that I'm aware of. But it's going to become a bigger and bigger issue if the employer is not taking proper precautions, or if we're put in a situation that is at risk, and I contract the disease. Then what happens? And what is the duty there, and who gets paid, and is there sick days, and what about sick days, and all of this stuff is a Pandora's box that is already becoming sort of creeping. The lid is creeping open a little bit already. So HR is going to be a big, big issue when it comes to mental health, physical health, wellness, performance management, and all these other sort of other issues associated with health and safety. So it's pretty obvious, but there's a lot behind the HR space. Operations. So let's maybe skip a little bit and let's go to IT and web. Pretty straightforward. I mean, the fact that we're going into more of a digital space, the fact that as we're having these conversations, and in some cases, they're highly confidential conversations, cybersecurity, these types of things are going to become a bigger and bigger player. They already are big. They're going to be bigger. Having a secure internet system, having the proper servers, and having the proper software that integrates with your security is going to be a big, big issue, because we're having some very, very confidential conversations now that we had in a closed boardroom that now are open to potentially everyone. You remember early on in the Zoom space, where people would sort of, what do they call it, Zoom bombing or something like that, where somebody would suddenly kind of click on your link, and we've never heard this term before, and it was fortunately it was more more having fun with things. But if there was a secure a confidential conversation, if there was a performance management issue, if there was a hiring, firing, who knows what else, all kinds of stuff, corporate security, intellectual property conversations, these things are all subject to potential breaches. So having a strong sort of web platform and having strong IT professionals within that platform are both going to be very, very important moving forward. Again, the remote thing's not going away. There was a survey again done by Gartner, and 75% of the CFOs of Fortune 500 companies said in some way, shape, or form, remote's going to stay. Now that meant 5% of their employees up to 40% of employees remaining remote. So
Wow.
Remote's not going away, and so as long as it's there, the cybersecurity and the platforms that we operate under are going to have to be the folks running those platforms are obviously going to be in demand. Never mind to say that the bandwidth and all these other things that we're going to have to accommodate. If you remember early on in the pandemic, I'm going to say in around April, when we were all on Netflix, and you remember how slow Netflix was and how crappy the picture was. Well, that was a direct reflection of bandwidth, and there was a lot of people onto the system and not enough bandwidth to kind of accommodate. Now, since then, they've had to upgrade their systems, but it's a bandwidth issue. And so, even from that perspective, so there's a lot of layers to this whole thing. And in every layer, there will be a demand for some of these web and IT professionals.
Yeah, I know, at least in our case, when we first kind of packed everything up and moved home back in March, I know our IT guy kind of set up in our boardroom and had a big chart on the wall. Say, okay, Matt's computer is done, Renee's computer is done. Then he had to remote in to every single one of our home computers and put on the proper antivirus and go through all these steps and stages. And now you're not afraid to use your computer, but if something goes wrong, it could affect the whole company.
Yeah, absolutely. Backup. So it's very fascinating data.
Yeah, in that same vein, Henny, from working from home, you mentioned performance management, like tracking time. I've seen everything from, I know initially one thing that we did is we kind of did a little sheet each individually to kind of keep track of what we were doing. But I've seen the other extreme of people who have to stay, active on their computer, and it lets their employer know if they're active or not. So where do you fall? I don't know, maybe you can elaborate on what you're doing or that kind of thing.
Well, it's an interesting conversation, and these are, I guess, the first step is really defining what performance is now. What is it now? I know that I was having a conversation. I sit on a number of boards in the city, and I was having a conversation, a Zoom board meeting, and somebody had mentioned sort of as we were on this board meeting, oh, I got to move the mouse, and I didn't know what that meant. She said, I got to move the mouse. I got to move the mouse, and so I thought that was a euphemism for something. I'm not the youngest guy in the world, and I thought this is some young street lingo now. I got to move the mouse. I got to do something hip, or I don't know, whatever, right? It turned out, no, literally, she had to move the mouse because if the mouse stays inactive for a certain amount of time, there's the appearance of inactivity at your desk, and you're not working, and somebody was monitoring that. Now, I don't know if that's the right way to measure performance or not, but just to give you an idea that was one metric that somebody was looking at, is how often is the mouse moving in a whatever, an hour or what have you. So it is going to change the way we look at it. And Matt and Renee, you know me, I'm more of a results-oriented person. I'm more about what the outputs are. I think we have to hire really good people and with great attitudes, and then trust them to kind of output the proper results. But that's just me, and everyone sort of looks at things a little differently. So there's no easy answer to that, Matt. Performance management will have to be revamped. There will have to be a component of activity. There will have to be a component of results. There will have to be a component of quality, whatever that looks like. What my sort of take on it is: you can have an N of 100 and a quality of 0, and you net out 0. Or you can have a quality of 100 and an N of 0, and you still net out 0. So there has to be a balance between sort of the quality and the quantity aspects of performance management to optimize overall performance, right? So that's the question that every business is going to have to answer, and every business is going to be very different.
Thanks, go for it.
Okay. So the one last thing I wanted to mention, Matt, if you want to go back one slide, is on operations management.
Oh, yeah.
Because operations management is actually got the least on our poll, believe it or not, right? Everyone else is pretty obvious.
13%.
Yeah.
Operations. That's interesting.
But it actually probably will be the most impactful out of all of these. And the reason it'll be the most impactful out of all of these is that fundamentally the way we look at the operations of businesses moving forward is going to change. So traditionally, well, first of all, the first way that we're going to look at it is how much of a permanent employer, how much of a permanent employee base are we going to manage? Because moving forward, the recommendation or the trends are suggesting that there's going to be a up to 40% increase in contingent labor use. So what does that mean? That means there's a flexible component built into your overall human capital plan where you have some permanent employees and you have some contingent flexible employees. And why would you use contingent flexible employees? Well, you'd use contingent flexible employees for project-based opportunities. So I don't need to amass a whole permanent full-time crew of people. And all we want to do is we want to execute a project. We're going to bring some people in from wherever. Many companies provide that service. Mine does too. But we're going to bring some people in and we're going to execute that project, and then they're going to disband. Now, that project could be 2 months. It could be 3 months. It could be a year. It could be a week. But it's a very project-based requirement. Now, it's probably not business essential because you want your best people in your organization, your permanent folks, to do business essential work, but it's probably business necessary, i.e. it's got to get done. And do I want to deploy full-time permanent resources, or can I bring somebody in to get it done? Right? So that's going to be one area that we're going to start to look at. Now, think about it from the employer standpoint. We don't know where this pandemic is going. We don't know when the next shoe's going to fall. Do I really want to acquire more human capital risk, quote unquote, onto my payroll, where I'm paying benefits to Uyghurs and I'm paying, I'm bringing more into it. So contingent labor is going to increase. That's going to change the way we operate. So operations managers are going to have to figure out how that's going to fit into the overall operations of the organization. But other things are going to change. There's going to be a focus on Traditionally, most of the time, we focused on efficiency. The last 10 years, 15 years of business has been a focus on efficiency, getting people in place that are really amazing at what they do. So the minute that information or that task comes down to them, they can execute with excellence and efficiency. Well, what has COVID taught us? If that person is down for whatever reason, or if that person is a remote for whatever reason, and they don't have access to all the resources, what happens to efficiency? Goes out the window. In fact, it's now a stagnation issue because that person can't perform the job that they were efficient in. And so now we have a bottleneck in the system.
Oh, interesting.
And so what we're going to see now moving forward is instead of focusing on efficiency, we're going to see focusing on flexibility, where we're going to have folks that are not the most efficient, but they can fill multiple roles. Because if we come into a situation like COVID again, or even now, while we're in the throes of it, we have business can still maintain and move forward because there's some flexibility built into the network, so to speak, not only from a contingent labor standpoint, but also from an individual skill standpoint that, we can kind of navigate it and we can make it through. So that's going to fundamentally change the operations side of things. And then the last thing that's going to happen is that to sort of focus on the skill business, we used to traditionally focus on key roles, and we would promote people to key roles within an organization. Well, that's going to change also. If we're going to focus more on flexibility now moving forward, then we don't need to promote people through key roles. We need to promote people through key skills and develop those skills that are key to the organization. And that will allow individuals to kind of navigate through whatever the future looks like with a little bit more fluidity, let's say, than we have in the past, where we have these hard breakpoint positions.
And that's an excellent segue into our next poll, key skills.
Right? Key skills, if they are so important, I agree. They are absolutely crucial moving forward. What skill will be required in almost all roles in 2021 and into the future? What say you to our viewers? What say you? What is it? Tell us what skill you feel is going to be most required moving forward.
And we only have a couple minutes left, so we don't want to keep you guys here too much over time.
This is great material.
Good.
Absolutely thank you, Hanif, because I think what you're opening up is absolutely why, oh, look at this. We have got social media savvy number one. See, just like us, Maddie, right? Social media savvy.
Yeah. We're the social media savvy.
We are. Yeah. But actually, believe it or not, the answer is not social media savy. It is
data analysis. So, Hanif, can you elaborate on
data analysis?
Data analytics is really the one that is going to stand out of that list. Now, social media kind of falls sort of into that, but really it's so if you think about it, as we move to a more digitized world, data analytics and AI are already integral in many parts of business today, but it's going to expand. Just think about it as we move into more of a digitized world. That's full of ones and zeros, and ones and zeros represent data, and we have user data, we have online data, we have engagement data, we have customer data. All of these things are going to start to drive business decisions more so than in the past. And there's a lot more data coming in because we're all remote. So think about it: if you have a service to offer, how do you now track down your clients let's say your key purchasers or these sorts of folks if they're now working remotely? Well, you got to figure out a way to connect with them remotely. What about from a demographic standpoint? What are your client demographics? Well, if everybody is working remotely and a lot of people are going online, there's a ton of data that one can ascertain from that to better optimize your demographic targeting. So data analytics is going to be a huge skill set that we all have to get better and better at. And even with Uyghurs, we're doing some work right now on collecting some data just to make some small decisions. But it's stuff that's never really been done before. In many organizations, the big ones have it, but data analytics is going to be a big one. To complement data analytics is going to be AI, and AI is going to be driving a lot of decisions that it's going to be automated, whereby if X type of person comes into the system, then Y information gets sent to them. Now think about what just happened in the U.S. with the election, and how everybody in the U.S., literally everybody, has an augmented reality of the news. It's an adjudicated or a curated, I guess is the word. It's a curated news stream. What my likes are and my dislikes on Facebook, and what I send to somebody, and if I'm pro Republican or pro Democratic or pro civil rights or pro Black Lives or not, or what have you, all of that stuff is adjudicated, and I get a certain curated stream of information that is directly impactful and related to me, which is very different from Renee, who may have a very different. So if you think about that, all that is data and AI working together to integrate a very curated stream of information to a very specific person. And that stream of information is going to be very different. Now, that's no different than why any other business can't do the same thing to their clients. And so this is going to be a bigger and bigger issue moving into 2021 because we're going to be more digitized and because we're going to be remote. So that's the big skill. If you can have that, then I think it's a skill that is going to be in very, very high demand in many businesses.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks, Larissa from Blue Cross. Said another comment. Very interesting. The algorithm feeds us a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's very true. It keeps you down your path of thinking, or I mean, it's the same thing if you Google a watch, or look on Amazon, look at a watch, then all of a sudden your Facebook ads, your Instagram ads, like, oh man, everywhere now.
What's interesting too, Hanif, is you had mentioned one time how in the absence of a gut decision, data analysis will be king.
Yeah. Good. It's a good question. Yeah, thanks, Renee. So back in the old days, we used to sort of follow our gut feel. I mean, I remember I was in senior management with a small company called Pfizer for many years, and just a tiny one, right? They came out with the vaccine recently, but often the conversation was around following your gut. I feel like this is the right decision. Well, there's a transformation now from following your gut to follow the data. And the data really starts to override the gut feel. And, sadly, I would say that, sometimes I think there is an intuition and a gut feel that, maybe that it's still needed there. Maybe there is that. Maybe it's the romantic in me that sort of likes that, just to sort of digitize everything into zeros and ones seems like a very sterile kind of a thing. But that the shift has happened, and we're moving from that gut feel to these are what the numbers are saying, and this is what we got to do. Now, whether that's the right thing to do or not, that's a different situation. And the gut, there's a morality and sort of the right thing to do. And whether that the right thing fulfills the vision of the company, right, is a different issue. If your vision of the company is to support the Children's Hospital and to do those sorts of things, and the data is suggesting we're more profitable by doing this other route, well, then you've got a decision to make, right? And then you follow your gut, I guess, and it's there's still something there. So, but certainly follow the data is going to be a bigger issue.
Hanif, we could honestly spend an entire series of Tune In Tuesdays with you. Thank you to everyone for your participation today. I think this is an area that employers and employees are paying a lot of attention to. I know we are in working with employers and employees every day. So thank you so much for your insight. For those of you, again, who are not familiar with Hanif Hamani of Express Employment Professionals, call this man. He will help you out. Again, thank you for joining us. If you found today's presentation at all worthwhile and at all helpful to how you're planning your business, please leave us a Google review. Matt, any final thoughts with coming up Tune In Tuesdays?
So our next Tune In Tuesday, mark your calendars, January 12th, with Michael Kars from Saskatchewan Blue Cross, and we are going to be chatting about employee benefits liability. We figured let's not end the year on a on a liability note. Let's start January with it off, get everyone on the right foot. So yeah, tune in then and join us. And there'll be a survey going out after this to everyone who registered. So we really appreciate your feedback on future guests, topics, kind of you name it.
And replay will be available on both LinkedIn, as well as you can reach out to us directly, and we will be able to send you the link for replay. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Hanif.
Bye-bye.